what do you think that you can change in your lifetime?
It's endless.
What do you want to change as an activist? What have you seen changed by your actions as an activist? And when we say that, we now say that starts with an idea. It includes communication, but what we're talking about with activism is something that actually moves in the world.
I have been, well, let's put it this way. I have been, my initial entrance into being an activist was in opposing the way that government policy addressed women in the workplace and in society. And what that ended up being for me was focusing pretty exclusively on how the government funds women's programs like childcare, job training, healthcare, things that allow women to sort of operate in a more economically independent mode from men, still dependent on the government, which was a very, unfortunately, discouraging area of focus. I mean, I loved the work while I was doing it and the people I was meeting, but we lost everything we ever tried to do. And that really came about when I was working on the Hill. And I spent my entire time on the Hill working against the Clinton welfare reform bill, someone who I had voted for and also whose party I was in on the Hill as a member of Congress, working for a member of Congress in the Democratic Party. And all I did for a year was, work to try and stop his bill. And then it's a longer story, but how I sort of emerged in the anti-globalization movement, I've been a part of this movement that has been based on victories, on, major organizing successes. And we have participated in something that has fundamentally changed the international dialogue on how economies function.
So what have been some of the successes?
The sort of simple ones are things like stopping the multilateral agreement on investment from becoming an agreement through an international organizing effort, which was the first trade agreement that I worked on. The next thing we did was stop fast-track trade negotiating authority, which is the means that the president uses to speed trade agreements through Congress, so essentially bypassing the Congress. Then there was the coming together in Seattle of developing countries, activists from all over the world, people on the street, stopping the WTO's ministerial, which, because there's this weird, when things enter into popular culture, we like to then critique them because they're popular. Because Seattle became pop, it is now critiqued because, white kids had fun on the street. Well, the truth is, it totally shook the powers that be, and they're still reeling from the loss in Seattle. And you can see a tremendous amount of what the Bush administration is currently doing now is still trying to pick up the pieces of the momentum that they lost in Seattle and the fear that it put into the corporate world. Then we stopped the WTO in Cancun, Mexico again. The Free Trade of the Americas has been stopped. Those are sort of concrete, tangible victories, but the larger victory has been, sort of participating in something that is actually creating a sense for the people in it, like myself, that we can be modems of change. And I think everyone all around the world that has participated in this has that sense, which makes us, a much more difficult barrier than maybe other social movements, because most people who are part of this movement still feel that way. Feel like even with the fact that the war in Iraq still happened, even with the fact that Bush is president, we're part of something that's bigger, and it's still moving forward.